Hi, Michael Leckie here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a consultant, advisor, and speaker who works on organizational change and development and helping to change organizations for good. Today I'm going to talk about something a little bit different. I've been really bothered as I've, observed the world that I live in here in the United States over the past few years, and it's especially become clear during what's happened with COVID-19 and the political situation, whichever side you're on, how divided we are as a country and how we don't seem to want to reach across to each other, but just to kind of fight our positions. And it worries me. And today I read something that may seem kind of an unusual segue from that introduction, but it bothered me. I went downstairs and my wife said to me something about an article in the New York Times. And I'd recently been to my physician, and when I was there, he'd offered me the COVID-19 antibody test, or one of them. And I went ahead and took it. And I didn't really pay much attention to it. I thought, yeah, why not, give it a shot. I mean, everything going on couldn't hurt to know. And she had read an article in the New York Times about not being so sure about the value of the antibody tests. And what they basically said is that these tests were 90% accurate, meaning that there was a 10% chance of a false positive if you took it. So that means that if you take the test and you get a positive, you can basically be 90% sure that you have it. At least that's how my mind works and how most mind works. That's actually untrue. You probably have about a 30% chance of actually having it if you get that. It's about 70% chance it's a false positive. Now, the interesting thing is that while I'm not a mathematician and math was always a challenge for me, it was a language that I don't come by easily, and if I don't use it, it's gone. And it's mostly gone. But in my education, I have a master's degree. I've had 2 years of undergraduate statistics and 2 years of graduate level statistics. And so I should have been able to understand what she was talking about pretty readily, but I couldn't. So I read the article. And the article, the individuals in it basically laid out this little kind of word problem. Here's the case and scenario, and most people don't get this, but it's really, really much higher. And I thought, well, I still don't get it reading the article, which I felt kind of irritated, probably because I felt kind of stupid maybe reading that article. And so I went and I clicked on one of the sources. And that was the part of an abstract that said the same thing but didn't give me any information unless I wanted to subscribe to some scientific journal and pay for it, which I didn't because I figured I wouldn't understand it. Then I clicked again on the study that they'd referenced. And what was interesting is this was a study of Harvard-trained physicians that showed that most of them actually got it wrong as well when they looked at it as a word problem. But when they broke it down into a decision tree, it became very clear and most people understood it. And the study was about why people don't understand sometimes basic mathematics when they're presented basically as a word problem. Then I went back to the article, and the guy who was writing it presented as a word problem, so he was causing the same problem as the study he cited. Now, if all that was too much detail for you and you've clicked off already, I'm sorry. But here's the point for me, is that given my educational background, you would have I would have understood that, or you would have thought that I would have understood that. But I didn't, and I had to go and click a few articles in and do some reading and really think and look at the picture to figure it out. Now, I'm going to guess that means that there are a lot of people just like me who have the same level of education, or maybe even less education, who would struggle with it just as much. But the way the article was written, it wasn't written for them to understand. It was written for the ones who already understood it to understand it. And so if I'm reading that, I have two choices really, and this happened to me. One is to understand it, or to feel stupid for not understanding it. And if I start feeling stupid for not understanding it, the easiest thing to do is just to doubt the truthfulness of it, doubt the usefulness of it. And so this is one of my concerns, is sometimes when we communicate, we're not communicating for everyone. That article could have been made very simple so that anybody could have learned something and also seen something about how they process information in a new way. Instead, in my view, I'm sorry to the authors, I think it's just going to make a lot of people feel stupid. And they're going to say, one more example of the New York Times not knowing what they're talking about. And the problem is that what they shared was true and real. They just shared it, and I'm going to be judgmental, in what seemed like a fairly elite way. And I don't think that helps any of us. So I think it's a good reminder that when we're communicating with each other, especially on things that may be difficult to understand, just because we understand it doesn't mean that the person who doesn't isn't just as smart or just as able to as us. And we need to help those people understand it, not leave them in a place of ignorance where they might just react to us negatively and create more of a divide as opposed to bringing us together. So that's my rant for today. I hope it was useful. If you have any more questions about it, feel free to reach out. You can get me at michael@silverbackpartners.net, or you can go to my website, silverbackpartners.net. Always glad to hear from people and connect to the community and the world around me. Thanks for taking the time. Bye-bye.